You seal the lid tight. You wipe the counter after every meal. You even move the sugar jar to a different shelf, thinking that will throw them off. And still, some morning before the coffee is even poured, there they are. A thin, dark line crossing the counter, climbing the side of the jar, working their way along the seam of the lid like they know something you don't. You wipe them away. You feel a small victory. By the next afternoon, the line is back, thicker than before, and you start to wonder if the jar itself has become the problem, if maybe it's time to throw it out and start over with a new one. It isn't the jar. And it was never really about the seal on the lid, not the way you think. My name is Anna Beiler. I am Amish, and I keep house with my husband on our farm here in Holmes County, Ohio. I have raised 6 children in this kitchen, and every one of those years has come with its own summer of ants finding the sugar before we do. What I want to give you today is a way of dealing with them that my own grandmother used, long before anyone in this county had a name in their phone for a pest control man. It costs about $1 to try. It uses 2 things most of you already have in the house. And it does not just clear the ants off your counter for an afternoon, it ends the whole business, roots and all, in a way that a clean counter never can. If this is the kind of plain, useful help you came looking for, go ahead and subscribe, and tell me down in the comments what state you are watching from. Here is what most people get wrong about the ants on their counter, and it is a mistake I made myself for years before my mother-in-law set me straight. The ants you see marching toward your sugar jar are not the trouble. They are runners, sent out from someplace you cannot see, someplace behind your wall, or under your porch step, or beneath the slab your kitchen sits on. A handful of them, maybe a few dozen on a busy day, go out searching every morning, while the rest of the household waits. When one of them finds your sugar jar, she does not eat her fill and go home satisfied. She marks a trail back with a scent too faint for you to smell, and by evening that trail has become a road that every forager in the colony knows to follow. Behind that road sits the real household. There is a queen down in the dark, laying eggs day after day, and around her sits the brood, the young ones being raised and fed by workers who never once come up to your kitchen. That colony might hold thousands. The line on your counter is a few dozen of them at most, out doing errands. When you wipe that line away or spray it dead, you have removed the errand runners for an hour. You have done nothing to the household sending them. New runners come up within the day because the queen is still down there, still laying, still hungry, and the colony still needs feeding. This is why sealing the jar tighter never solves it either. A tighter seal keeps them out of that one jar, sure enough. But the colony under your house doesn't care which container holds the sugar. They will find the next crumb, the next spill, the next open cereal box, and you will be right back where you started, just with a different food source in the crosshairs. Wiping vinegar along the counter breaks the scent trail for a day, maybe 2, until new scouts lay a fresh one down. A bay leaf tucked in the sugar or a ring of cinnamon around the jar might slow them for a week if you're lucky, because a few ants find the smell unpleasant enough to detour around it. None of it touches the queen. None of it touches the nest. You are managing the symptom and calling it a cure, and every few weeks you find yourself back at the store buying more vinegar or more bay leaves, wondering why none of it holds. My grandmother did not fight the ants at the jar. She sent something back with them instead, all the way down to the one place in that colony a spray or a wipe of vinegar could never reach. And what she used to do it was a plain white mineral called borax, the same box that has sat on laundry shelves in this country for the better part of 100 years, sold for softening wash water. It is dug straight out of old dried lake beds out west, ground down fine, and it costs somewhere around $1 for enough to last you a whole season and then some. There is nothing rare about it, and nothing hidden about where to find it. Any grocery store or hardware store that sells laundry soap sells it, usually sitting right there on the same shelf, plain as anything. The reason it works where a spray does not comes down to patience, and to understanding what an ant actually does with food once she finds it. A worker ant does not eat alone. When she finds something sweet, she carries a portion of it back to the nest in her crop, and there she shares it mouth to mouth with the other workers, with the ones tending the young, and eventually with the queen herself. This sharing is how a whole colony survives on the work of a few dozen foragers, and it is also the exact weakness that a plain kitchen mixture can use against them. If the sugar she carries home is laced with a small, careful amount of borax, it does not kill her on the spot. She feels fine. She goes home and shares it, just as she was built to do, and over the next day or two it works through the household she feeds, all the way to the queen. Her egg-laying slows and then stops. With no new brood coming, the colony that has been sending runners to your counter for weeks begins to fall apart from the inside, and it does so without you lifting a hand against a single ant you can see. If this is doing you some good so far, subscribe and turn on notifications so the next one finds you when it is ready. Here is exactly how to put this together, and I want you to hold on to the proportions, because getting them right is what separates a bait the ants will carry home from a bait they'll simply walk past. You will need a small box of borax, plain and unscented, the kind sold in the laundry aisle. You will need white sugar, which is likely already sitting in the very jar they've been raiding. You will need a little warm water and something to hold the mixture in, either a handful of cotton balls or a few small jar lids or bottle caps. Now, I'll tell you something my mother used to say. A remedy you can't remember is no remedy at all. You nod along today, and by the time you need it, half of it has slipped away. So we gathered everything up. Every trick I've shared here, and a good many I haven't, written down plain and sorted by the problem. When something goes wrong in your house, you open it, and the answer is sitting right there. The link is down below in the description. You'll find the link down below in the description. It costs less than one trip to the store for something that won't work half as well. In a small bowl, mix 1 part borax to 3 parts sugar. 1 spoon of borax to 3 spoons of sugar is the ratio my grandmother used, and it is the one that has held up in this house for as long as I can remember. Too much borax and the ants taste that something is wrong before they've carried it anywhere, and they'll turn away from it entirely. Too little, and there isn't enough in each drop to do its work before the ant has already gone on her way. 3 parts sugar to 1 part borax gives you a mixture sweet enough that they take it eagerly, and still carries enough of the mineral to finish the job once it's home. Add about 1/4 cup of warm water to that mixture, and stir it until everything dissolves into a clear, thin syrup, something close to the thickness of pancake batter, with no grit left sitting at the bottom of the bowl. Warm water pulls the sugar and borax into solution far better than cold, so don't skip that part. Once it's smooth, soak your cotton balls in the syrup until they're heavy and saturated, or pour a thin layer of the syrup into your jar lids, just enough to cover the bottom. Now set your bait stations along the path the ants are actually using, not where you'd prefer them to be. Get down at counter height and follow the line back toward where it enters, whether that's a gap along the baseboard, a crack near the window, or the edge of a cabinet. Place your bait close to that entry point and away from the sugar jar itself, so the ants have an easier, more direct source to carry home instead of continuing to raid your kitchen. If you've got more than one trail crossing your kitchen, set out more than one station. 3 or 4 small dishes scattered along different routes will move things along faster than a single one will. Here is the part that asks the most of you, and it is the part where most people give up on this method before it has a chance to work. Once your bait is down, leave the ants alone. Do not wipe them off the counter. Do not reach for a can of spray, because the sight of more ants than usual alarms you. If you kill the ones carrying the bait, you have broken the very chain that was meant to carry it home to the ones who matter. Let them feed. Let them walk the syrup back down into the dark where you cannot follow. Your patience over the next 2 or 3 days is the entire cost of this working, and it is a far smaller price than most people imagine. I want to tell you exactly what you'll see during those 2 or 3 days, so it doesn't catch you off guard and send you running for the spray bottle too soon. For the first day, sometimes into the second, you are likely to see more ants than you started with, not fewer. This looks like the plan failing. It is the opposite. It means the scouts found the bait and reported it back to the rest of the colony, and now every forager the nest has is coming up to collect the bounty they've been told about. Every one of them is carrying borax back with her. Let that swarm run its course. By the following morning, the crowd usually starts to thin. By the second or third day, what was a thick, busy line becomes a scattering of stragglers, wandering without much direction, because the household organizing them is beginning to come apart underneath your house. Within a few more days, the road they wore into your counter goes quiet, because there's no longer a colony sending anyone up to walk it. If a few stragglers linger, set out one more round of fresh bait to catch them, along with any smaller satellite nest you might not have known was there. I want to be plain about the safety of this, the same way I'd want it laid out for me before I tried it in my own home. Borax sits low on the scale of harm compared to the chemical sprays sold for the same purpose, the kind you'd otherwise be laying down across the very counter where you cut bread or roll out dough. But low harm is not no harm, and it is still something you don't want a small child getting into, or a curious dog or cat lapping up from a dish. Every bait station should go somewhere out of their reach, tucked behind an appliance, set back inside a cabinet, or placed where only something the size of an ant could crawl to reach it. Wash your hands well once you're done mixing, and treat the box the same way you'd treat any strong cleaning powder kept under your sink. Handled with that much care, it gives you no trouble at all. I should also tell you what this does not fix, because I would rather you know that now than feel let down later. This works on the ants that forage for sugar and other sweets, the small black ones, the pavement ants along your sidewalk cracks, the ones that give off a sharp smell when crushed. All of them share food through the colony the same way, so all of them can be reached through a bait like this. It is not the answer for carpenter ants chewing into damp wood, for a wasp nest tucked up under the eave, or for anything living in your walls that isn't after your sugar jar. Each of those is a different trouble that calls for its own approach, and I won't pretend one bowl of syrup solves everything under your roof. I'd like you to sit with one thing before we close, because to my mind it's the part of this that matters most. A jar of laundry borax costing about $1 reaches all the way down to the queen of a colony, while a service that comes to spray your yard every few months and bills you again each season for years never touches her at all. 10 years of quarterly visits can run a family several $1,000s for a problem that a saucer of syrup, left alone for a few days, settles for good. So it's worth asking why the cheap thing sitting plainly on the shelf isn't the one anyone tells you about. The honest answer is a simple one. There's no money to be made in a box of powder a household buys once and uses for years. There's a great deal of money in a service that gets paid every quarter, forever, for a job that never quite finishes. A method that ends the problem in a few days isn't good for a business that depends on you calling again next spring. That doesn't mean anyone sat in a room and decided to keep it from you. It means the plain, cheap fix simply stopped getting talked about, because nothing in the marketplace stood to gain by talking about it. The knowledge didn't disappear because it failed. It faded because it worked too well and cost too little to be worth advertising, and what gets remembered tends to follow the money more often than it follows the truth. So here is what I'd ask you to do this week, while it's still fresh. Pick up a small box of borax next time you're at the store, likely for close to $1. Mix 1 part of it with 3 parts sugar and a little warm water until it runs clear. Soak your cotton balls or fill your jar lids and set them along the path the ants are actually walking, close to their entry but away from the sugar jar itself. Then do the hard part and leave them be. Let them carry it home. Come back down to the comments after a few days and let me know how long your line took to go quiet. And while you're there, tell me what part of the country you're writing in from. I read every one you leave, and I'm always curious which troubles tend to follow which climates. Thank you for sitting with me through this. Subscribe if you want more old household wisdom, and the next video is right there on your screen when you are ready for it.